Well, the 350Z broke down once again, and it turns out it's another high-tech problem with a low-tech solution. You guys might have remembered the time that I was having trouble getting the thing started. It's just no matter how much I turned that key, it would not crank over, and it turned out it was just a little rubber button on the clutch pedal, along with a relay problem and a problem with my IPMD all at the same time. This time, it's the throttle pedal that doesn't want to work. The car starts and runs great, but you just can't rev it up, which actually caused me to get stranded. I was sitting at a traffic light, a car drove right up to the light just fine, but as soon as I let go of the pedal, waited for the light to turn green, got back on it, and the car barely rolled because it was only at idle, so I immediately pulled over. Of course, holding up a lot of traffic behind me who was really impatient. That's always when the thing wants to fail. Thankfully, I was close to home. But because I was close to home, I didn't have a toolkit. Otherwise, I would have fixed it perhaps with just a stack of pennies and a little bit of crazy glue, which I always have in the car somewhere on a long trip. Anyways, let's get down to it. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to pluck that dingle belly if you're interested in this video. And follow me, as always. Check out duckshit.net for all my different videos. And there's always stuff on Nissan 350Z when it comes up, but usually I'm working on my Volkswagens just the same. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back right after this. Well, as all of you already know, I was driving home and just came upon a traffic light. I was first in line when I came to the red, and when it turned green, I just slowly started to move at idle speed when I let the clutch out. The gas pedal was just dead. And of course I held up traffic behind me, but that's just the way it goes. I noticed the check engine light was on, as well as a slip and traction control off light. This was an unusual problem, and I just rolled casually into a parking lot. My first thought is the throttle position sensor on the gas pedal broke, and I wasn't terribly wrong. I always keep a diagnostic reader with me, and I suggest that you do too if you have a modern car. So I checked for the codes, and I got a P2122 and a P2127. Both are related to the TPS. I limped the car home, and I noticed it was idling about at twice the speed it would normally, and I managed to achieve 30 miles per hour at this new idle speed in 6th gear. I don't know if that was intended by design, but hey, it got me home. Naturally, everyone you could imagine, however, though, was stopped in front of me for no reason at all, making it even harder for me to get back up to the speed. That just figures. Well, anyway, once I got home, I managed to coast into the driveway. I went under the hood and started to check to make sure all the electrical connections on the throttle body were connected properly, since the errors do indicate low, and that usually means some kind of lack of voltage. Then I went under the dashboard to look at the TPS location, and that's when I quickly noticed the problem. This was very similar to my non-starting issues that I had in one of my past 350Z videos. I found bits of green soft plastic on my very dirty, needing to be vacuumed floor. But upon further look, I found other green remnants clinging to the gas pedal lever just the same up above. I read up on the issue and found that the little bump stop button pad for the throttle pedal can break, or it can just go missing. The pedal will then travel past its normal resting position. This will cause the TPS to be out of parameters when you start the car, which disables the throttle and puts the ECU in stupid mode.
My brain's itchy.
Fail.
Now, if what you are experiencing is a similar issue, but you don't see chunks of pad on the floor, and you want to diagnose this but aren't ready to take things apart yet, then do this. Shut the car off and wait for 10 seconds. Exactly. Or even a little longer, but not less than 10. Then rest your foot on the pedal a little bit and just go ahead and start the car. You should notice that your TCS and slip lights are now off, and you can rev the car up. But don't let your foot off the gas pedal completely, or the TCS and slip lights will come on once again, and your car will idle to a stop, where you have to shut it back off again for 10 seconds and repeat the process. This might be a little hard to train yourself to do, but it'll get you to where you need to be in the event this occurred. And I don't recommend this for everybody, because not everybody's that coordinated, so if you're not certain, don't do this. Anyway, the proper solution to fix it is just to buy a new rubber pad from your dealer and replace it. They aren't particularly cheap. The last one I got was about $15. But if you are someplace remote, that's just not going to be an option. So I got to taking it apart, and I went to pull the throttle assembly out for observation. It's real simple. There's just two 10mm nuts that are holding it in. That's all you have to remove. Then carefully disconnect the wiring harness, and out comes the gas pedal,
and the throttle position sensor. I put it up on the bench where I can get a good look at it, both for curiosity's sake and just to figure out where the rubber button went. There's really not too much to this thing at all. I measured the thickness of the rubber button bits to give myself an idea of what I needed to replace. I found it to be just under 5 millimeters, which is how thick it was before it disappeared. A new pad you may find to be a little bit thicker than that, but this gives me a baseline. I found a 6mm bolt with a 10mm head that was just 3/100ths of a millimeter less thick. This could work, and if it does not, I suppose I could throw in a washer. If you find yourself in this position, and you only have bolt heads that are too thick, of course you can always just grind them down a little bit to make the measurement that you need. It's a little tricky to get that bolt in place as you have to press the throttle, and it's under a lot of spring tension, much more than I thought, and then you have to slide that bolt through, so yeah, it's a little fussy. Once I got it through there, I put a washer and nut on the backside. It's probably a good idea here to add a little dot of Loctite, which I did not, but if I have to go back in there again, I'll make sure that I do so. The bolt sticks through the assembly and into empty airspace, not pressing it into the firewall or anything else, so once it's installed in the car, it shouldn't interfere with anything. But I don't recommend using a bolt that's too long here because you might punch a hole in your wiring harness or something else. So, it's time to reinstall this thing, and as I said, there's just not much to this thing at all. First, I reconnected the wiring. This was the hardest thing to reach underneath there. Then I slid the throttle assembly onto the studs that stick out into the firewall. I returned the 10mm bolts to their positions and snugged them up tight. I clicked the wiring harness clip back into its place. Now, if I got everything right, it should just start up and the problem should go away. The throttle is working again. I do notice that when you flip your foot off the throttle pedal, there is a more noticeable ticking sound when the lever hits the bolt head. It's really not a nuisance to me, but it may bother somebody else. So if that's you, then get the proper OEM part and replace this temporary bolt. The slip lights and the TCS lights are now off, but the check engine light is still on. Well, all that is left here is to clear the codes and fix the check engine light. Everything should be back to normal after this. And we're good. Well, I hope this video is helpful to someone, and if it is, please hit that like button and throw me a subscription. Check out duckshit.net for all of my different social media links. You can also find my other YouTube channels up there, as well as my Instagram, Facebook, and whatever else I have. Thanks again, everyone. See you again next time.